Hello and welcome to the Story Shed. Hope that you're all keeping well and safe. I have another story for you from the Children's Bedtime Treasury. I hope you've enjoyed all of the stories so far. And this one is called The Enchanted Harp. Long ago there lived a peddler, and every day he took up the same place in the market square with his harp. Now this was no ordinary harp. It was an enchanted harp. The pedlar would call out to passers-by, and for a penny the harp would play all on its own any tune they wished. It could play any sort of tune, from the slowest, most tearful ballad to the liveliest, happiest jig. It could play music for any occasion. Sometimes a wedding party would come by just to have the harp play a tune for the bride and groom. Now, one day, a young man passed through the town. He heard the sound of the harp's sweet music coming from the market square and made his way over to where the pedlar stood. He couldn't believe his eyes or his ears. The harp was playing a lullaby for a lady with a baby that was crying. The music was so enchanting that the baby soon stopped wailing and was fast asleep. Then he saw an old man give the pedlar a penny and whisper in his ear. The harp changed its tune, and now it played an ancient melody that the old man had not heard for many a year, and his eyes filled with tears of gratitude. The young man watched all of this and thought to himself, if only that harp were mine, I could make a lot more money with it than that silly old pedlar. He waited a while for the crowd to disperse, and then, when he thought no one was looking, he went up to the pedlar and said, "People say that on this day a great spotted pig will fall out of the sky and land on the market square. Keep a lookout and see if you see a pair of trotters in the sky. If you see them, then get out of the way fast." And he pointed up to the sky. The pedlar peered upwards, but all he could see was scudding white clouds. While he was staring up, the young man snatched the harp and was out of the market square and away down the street before the pedlar realized what had happened. "Stop! Thief!" the pedlar shouted, but it was too late. By the time folk gave chase, the young man had gone. He didn't stop running until he reached a town many miles away where no one had ever seen the enchanted harp before. The young man set up the harp and called out to passers-by, "2 pennies, and my harp will play any tune you wish." A man and woman came up and asked for a waltz, and sure enough the harp began to play. The couple spun round the square merrily and were happy enough to give the young man 2 pennies. More and more people came by and asked for tunes. The young man rubbed his hands with pleasure. "I shall surely make my fortune now," he said to himself. Weeks passed, and the man did indeed make a lot of money. He didn't care at all how much he charged. If someone who looked wealthy enough came along, he might charge them 6 pennies or even 8. By now he'd completely forgotten that he'd stolen the harp and that it didn't belong to him at all. He bought himself fine clothes and ate expensive food, and generally considered himself rather clever. Then one day an old man in a broad-brimmed hat came past and asked for a tune. He grumbled a bit when the young man asked for 2 pennies, but held out the coins, making sure the young man could not see his face, for he was the pedlar. "I'd like the harp to play a tune to drive you mad," said the old man. The young man thought this was a strange request, but he'd taken the coins, and the harp had already started to play. It played a short and very silly tune. Then it played again and again and again. It simply wouldn't stop. By now the old man had slipped away, so when people weren't watching, the young man tried to kick the harp, but it sidestepped him and carried on playing. On and on it went, playing that infuriating tune. The young man put his hands over his ears to block out the noise, but the harp just played louder. Passers-by moved away. "What a terrible tune," they said. The young man tried to move away too, but the harp just followed him down the road, still playing. Everywhere he went, night and day, the harp followed the young man until he was at his wits' end. He'd used up all his money and was in despair. Finally, he thought there was only one thing to do. He must go back to the peddler and beg him to stop the harp. It took him a long while to get back to the town where the peddler lived, but sure enough, there he was, standing in the market square, trying to sell a few old pots and pans to passers-by. He looked very unhappy, and the young man felt truly sorry for what he'd done. He approached the peddler with the harp still playing away behind him. He was about to explain when, to his surprise, the peddler stopped him and said, "I know all about your plight. I will stop the harp playing its maddening tune on one condition." "I'll do anything," said the young man. "You must ask people what tune they would like played, and then you must give them a penny each time." The young man gratefully agreed, and the peddler told the harp to stop playing. The young man had to work very hard to earn enough money to give people their pennies, but he was willing to do so in return for the peddler making the harp stop playing the maddening tune. And that's the end of the story of the Enchanted Harp. If you have any stories that you'd like to hear or poems in the Story Shed, you can write to us at the email address thestoryshed@gmail.com. That's thestoryshed@gmail.com. We're always looking forward to your emails. And in the meantime, take very good care and be well. And bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye.